could be the algorithms that come into the Gen AI, your machine learning models, deep learning models, right? I hope you have studied all these subjects, machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, right? Data science, AI, right? So that is what is AI. So wherein you are having a data set, you are training the data set, and your system is doing the things what you are trying to tell it, right? It's having its own decision making, but based on the trained data. Now when we say Gen AI, what is the difference now? Right? So Gen AI, it actually creates a completely new content from the trained data. So what that means here is, let's say that you are using ChatGPT. Hope all of you have used ChatGPT. Okay? So ChatGPT, if you just give a prompt, one word prompt also, it understands what you are trying to ask, right? And it gives you a lot of contents over there, explaining what you have asked for it. How is it coming? Are you training any data over there? Are you explicitly training any data? No. But it is generating some text for you which is relevant, right? So how is it? Because it has already been trained on a massive amount of data. This massive amount of data could be of various sources. It's not like from one source you are going to take the data and then train it. It could be from any online materials, it could be from the Wikipedias, right? It could be from any what I can see, the articles, book chapters, right? So from all the type of materials it is being trained, and the advanced machine learning algorithms are applied on that, so that whenever you ask any prompt, it is generating you a content over there. So we'll go in depth with this in the later part of a session. So that is what is Gen AI, which is creating a completely new content. This content, is it going to be only text? Can it be only text? No. It can be even audio, it can be even images, right? It can be even a conversion from text to image, image to text to audio, audio to video. So many things are there which is being performed using various Gen AI tools. So I'll show you some of the tools also if the time permits. Now, we have seen what is AI, we have seen what is Gen AI, which is going to create a completely new content based on the trained data, right? Now, what is explainable AI? Anybody? Now, when you train a model, when you come out with some prediction, you say that, okay, I have got this accuracy and I have got the accuracy of something 97%. Sometimes you say, I got only 60% accuracy, right? There should be somebody to tell that whatever I have got the prediction, it is correct and I can take the decision based on this. So explainable AI will give you the complete explanation of why you got this particular output. Understood? Right? It gives you the complete explanation of how you have reached to this particular decision or maybe a prediction. This is explainable AI. Now what do you mean by responsible AI? In brief. Now what is left out? Right? So we are taking so many contents from the internet, your ChatGPT is generating so many things, right? There should be somebody to say that whatever is generated is ethical, it is safe, it is actually following some privacy mechanism, yes? So we want all of these things before it displays some content, right? So there should be a consent taken from a particular source if you are displaying the image of particular person, or if you are taking a content from some particular personal document, then you should have a proper consent saying that yes, I have taken the permission to display this. So this consent or the ethics that you are going to follow, right, or the privacy mechanisms, all this comes in the responsible AI. Got it, guys? Yes, responsible AI is completely to say that if you are doing this, is it you have followed the ethics to do this? Okay, all this is followed by the responsible AI. I'll show you in the demo how it works. Then what is left out? So let's say agentic AI. Agentic AI, actually it has come long back only. Have you anybody worked on it? Anybody worked on the hardwares or robots? Right? Drone building or something like that. If you have worked on that, you must be knowing about the agentic AI. Agentic AI is completely for the autonomous systems, wherein you are developing a model, or I can say the prototype, which is making or thinking smartly on its own and taking the decision on its own without any human intervention. Let's say I have built a robot to clean the room. You have seen, right? We have a robot for cleaning a room. So I'm just telling that you have to go to these locations and then clean. I'm not saying that there is a dust, suck the dust. That decision should be taken by the robot itself. Okay, so it should have that kind of a decision making capacity to say that when I have to perform what kind of operation. So there is not much human intervention when it comes to an agentic AI. Okay, whereas in AI, human intervention is always required because you have to keep on telling this, it has to be done in this way. If this is the data, this could be the predictions. So there is a continuous monitoring required. Got it? So these are some of the AIs. There are other things which you can go through in the later part. So before going into all these things, I wanted to tell you because you should know how each of them are different, right? So in today's session, what I'm going to do is I'll just brief on the Gen AI, responsible AI, and also we'll see when it comes to any technology, there is not always an advantage. There are also disadvantages, right? So we have certain pros and cons. Then we'll see about the LLMs. Then we'll also talk about the LangChain, why the LangChain is important. And also about the RAG, I'll show you the architecture of the RAG, how the external knowledge is being used for running your models, and also a demo of certain programs which I have. Maybe you may not be able to run because you need to have a API keys for that. Anybody has purchased or subscribed for the API keys here? You can raise your hands, I can make the implementation. Otherwise, I'm using my own keys wherein I've already run the models. I cannot run here because it takes time to run the model. So I've run it and kept the model in my Colab. I'll show the demo of it. Okay, so we'll go, as I said already about the Gen AI, we'll go one by one here. Yes, generative AI, it's generating a completely new content based on the massively trained data, and this data is being trained using various advanced algorithms. So it is data, it could be in the form of a text, image, audio, video, and so on. Right? Next, why we want to go with this Gen AI? What's the advantage? What is the significance of it, right? So you want to make the things more easy, right? You want to avoid certain repetitive things. So we need certain technology to do all those things. For that, we are using the Gen AI wherein it automates the repetitive task, which means that if you are just giving a code saying that, okay, generate a code for me for a decision tree. Have you tried this in your Colab? Now Colab has a Gemini models, right? If you just give a prompt, generate a code for a decision tree, it will generate a code for you. Do we need to write it again? No, you need to just fine tune it. Am I right? Then, creativity and innovation. This comes when you see some of the tools, Gen AI tools. Can you list out some of the Gen AI tools? Anybody? Which you are using in your daily life, ChatGPT, right? That itself is one of the tools, right? So like that we have Brad, Claude, right? AlphaCodes. Then we have a Copilot, which is one of the very mostly used tool for codings, right? Various tools are there. What those tools are doing here is like if I say video generation or image generation, like Synthesia is there, Midjourney is there. All those tools, if you just give a prompt, okay, generate a image for me which has a wall with a paint having a small flowers with a color red. I'll just give the prompt. It will give me the paint of it. So obviously my work is being reduced here. It is used in entertainment. It is used in various movie industries. Now they are all using all these kind of tools, right? So enhance the creativity is there. Then efficiency across the industries. Now if you see in various industries, they have subscribed the GPT models. They are using all the subscription based tools. Why? Because their work is being more enhanced. They are doing the same work which is being done in 5 years, now they are doing it in 1 hour, right? So similarly, there are various other applications are there where Gen AI used. Entertainment, gamings, right? So many other things are there in healthcare, finance, sustainability, right? So various other applications are also there, which we'll see again in the later part. As I said about the tools, okay, I just want you all to explore the tools which are available. Maybe some of them are subscription based, some of them are there as a free trial version. So daily you can do at least 2 trials. You can actually explore the things. As I said, we have ChatGPT. Now under GPT, we have 3.5, 4.0, 4.0 mini, right? Have you heard? Right? If you go to ChatGPT, if you go on to the left side corner, you can see there 4.0, 4.0 mini, 3.5, right? So many other options are there. They are all the GPT models only. So like that, you have a Claude, you have a Cohere. For all of these to access, you need a keys. Okay, how to generate a key or maybe how to access the key, I'll show you. So like that, we have DALL-E, Midjourney, right, Synthesia, they're all the video and image generation tools. So we have even coding, right, how you have a Colab with a Gemini feature in it, where you are giving a prompt, it is generating a code for you, right. Similarly, we have a AlphaCode, which is mostly used. We have a GitHub Copilot, which is also mostly used for the efficient optimized code generations. So you can use all these things. I want you all to explore, make the things easy, and then it's not like you're just taking a code and you are dumping and you are running. You have to fine tune it. Okay, you should know what code you have taken, where you have to modify what content. So that knowledge you should have, right? So these are all a different type of tools which are available for the content creation, video generation, right? And as I said, audio and even the coding developments. Okay, so this is brief about the Gen AI. As I said, yeah, there are certain pros and cons, right? Now, what could be the advantage we have just listed out? You are developing any product, you are getting the code and you are fine-tuning the code. Your work of developing something from the scratch is reduced. Yes, you are developing a product quickly. Then customer experience, obviously, as I said, I just say a prompt, I am getting the things done. Now if you see in most of the entertainment or the outside, if you go, you see like people are there which has been outsourced to get the things done, right? Maybe for the image generation or maybe for interior designs, all those things, right? So it is one of the tool wherein you can make use of it and generate the designs of whatever you wish to, and you can edit it. Then similarly, we have various other advantages wherein it can analyze even the complex data sets, right? And you can use the data sets where it comes. If you are using the GAN models, you'll be knowing about it. I have an image, right? And I want to enhance the image or I want to augment the images, I have a tool for that, right? So that's also one of the advantages. But what are the disadvantages here? Okay, so when it comes to disadvantage, Gen AI, I think you must have observed, right? Sometimes it generates a code which is not even running. Observed? Yes? So there should be always this thing, that is, relevance should be required to know that, yes, what is the code generated, is it relevant for me? You should be able to analyze the code. So sometimes it creates a hallucination. Okay, it creates a data which is not that much relevant. You must have observed, right? So the code which you can write it in a 4-line, it is giving you 1-page code. Are you getting? So you need to have a check on the relevance. Is it required for me? Are you getting? Some things will be like hallucinated, like it creates which is actually not which is not required. So that is one of the disadvantage. Lack of transparency, which is nothing but a very unpredictable nature of Gen AI. I'll show you some of the codes which we are using now with respect to GPT-4 and the other things, where it is generating you the text in a very brief way. Instead of just saying ChatGPT, what is Gen AI, it gives you 1 page. I cannot sit and read 1-page content to know what is Gen AI. Are you getting? Will you be able to sit and read that? You want something which is very crisp, right? In 4-line. How you are going to fine tune it? We have a model for that. Fine. So that also we'll see. That's a lack of transparency. So we have to enhance it. And also, as I said, sometimes it generates the content wherein the consent might not be taken. So you have to check whether if I'm using this particular content, is it really accountable? Who is accountable for this content? Okay, so these are some of the advantages and disadvantages of the Gen AI. Now, coming to use cases. I think you people have studied NLP, right? Yes or no? In NLP, you have a part of speech, bag of words, right? You have a tokenization models, right? For all those programs to run, you are using one of the library, which is that basic library, NLTK. Yes? Guys, speak up. It should not be one way I am going on telling, and if you don't respond, I'll not get to know whether you are actually knowing, having a knowledge on those basics or no. So NLP uses one of the library, NLTK, right, which is actually used for natural language processing task, a basic task. What it does there, I'll give a sentence, it analyzes the sentence word by word, and it says that what should be the next word, right? Right? Now, what GenAI is doing is, it is not doing that text by text, word by word. It has a feature where it reads the complete paragraph and it generates the sentences at once. Okay, so for this kind of a text generation, this is one of the use case of a GenAI itself. Text generation, what you basically need here? We need a transformer based architectures. Now what are these transformers? Right? So transformers are again, a base is large language models, that is the LLMs, wherein these transformers are trained on a massive text data. Okay, it is trained on the large amount of text data, or you can say the corpus data, and it is running those machine learning models to generate the text for a given prompt. Are you getting? Right? So what we are doing here is, we are using the transformer based models for the text generation. Not only transformers, now we have even the LangChain and a RAG also. I will tell you later part of it, LLMs, how it is used. The first thing which has come was the transformer, wherein it is trained on the massive text data. And when you are generating any text for a given prompt, okay, it will identify which is the more suitable answer for this in a given amount of words. So how we are going to get that given amount of words here? I can set the parameter in my code saying that maximum length of the answer or your output should be 100 words, which is 100 tokens. Minimum length of the output should be 20 tokens, which means that you want the answer from 20 to 100. Within this, I want the answer. Are you getting? So this is where the text generation is being done, and one of the basic thing which you can see is the ChatGPT. Okay. So next, image generations. For image generation, we have a tool called as DALL-E. We have a tool called as a Synthesia. There are like that various tools which are available online. They are web-based tools. You need not to install those tools and all. They are web-based tools. If you just give DALL-E AI, you need to log in through your Google account, give a prompt over there. Okay, so it will show you an image for a given prompt. Okay, so let me see if the internet is good. I can try with that, because I have used it. I have run through all the trials. If it is already available in my account, I can just try it out. You can just go to DALL-E, sign in. So as of now, he is asking me to upgrade, but I can show you some. Just you have to give the prompt over here. Okay. It will generate an image for a given prompt. Let's say it takes time, okay? So these are the models which have already run it, okay, which I have tested to show the demo. I have just given the prompt as a rabbit running in the garden, okay? So you can see how the output is generated. Now why is that multiple outputs are generated here? The 4 outputs will be generated for any given prompt, wherein you can take the one which is suitable, or you can keep all those images as your data set. Understood? So like this, we have various tools. Midjourney, Synthesia, these are the most used tools which you can use as a trial based. If you want to do on a project or something like that, you can take a subscription based. Okay, so they are not very costly. You can take it for a minimum dollars it will be, and you can use it till your project is over. Okay, so this is one simple example where I have given the prompt, it is generating a text image for me. Got it, guys? Right? So explore, there are various Gen AI tools which will make your life easy. PPT. Right? So that's what the image generation. I have told about the image generation. Now for this image generation, what we are doing at the back end is, we are using the autoencoders. You must have heard this. Then GAN models. There are variants of GANs are there, right? Generative Adversarial Network. So can you list out some of the GANs here? Cycle GAN, conditional GAN, sorry? Okay, then vanilla, stack, then, okay, so you have used these GANs. These variants of the GANs are used for a particular application, like all of them are not having they are performing the work of you are fine-tuning the images, getting the clarity, or maybe increasing the data set sizes. But each of them are having their own advantages. Which GAN should be used for what type of a project, you have to decide on that, right? So that's what, that is the image generation. And when it comes to a video and a speech recognition, for generating a video, now we have seen an image where I have given the prompt, it has generated an image for me. The same thing I can do it for the audio as well, wherein I can use Synthesia. If you get a time, okay, you just have to say Synthesia AI, same way you do, log in through the Google, give a prompt saying that explain me about Gen AI. Okay, there is a robot, or I can say the AI agent who is explaining you what is AI. It's not like a system or something from the speaker. You will feel like so realistic that you feel like there is some teacher who is actually explaining me what is Gen AI. You can even change the position of the AI agent, right? You can even change which AI agent you want, you can select that also, right? So who will be explaining you what is Gen AI, what is responsible AI, what is data structures, or so on. For that, you have a tool called Synthesia. You have a trial version which can generate a audio for only some 5 seconds or so, not more than that, for a free trial version. If you take a subscription based, again, you can use it for the longer time. Got it? This is for the audio generations. Similarly, we have a data augmentations. Can you list out some of the techniques used for the data augmentation? Diffusion models. Have you heard about the diffusion models? Right? Yes. So GAN has 2 components. Can anyone tell me what are the 2 basic components over there? Generator and the discriminator. Generator, which generates the real or fake? Fake image. Generator generates the fake image. Discriminator compares with the trained image with the fake image. So to know that whether it is real or a fake, at one point of time discriminator will have a difficulty to know which is real, which is fake. So this is how you are going to augment the data. What is data augmentation? Increasing the data set size. How? By flipping, by cropping, all those things you do. But here what we do is we add a noise that's going to be the random noise to the original data, and then we compare with the real. Stable diffusions. Diffusion model, what it does there? It takes the real image, adds the noise to that, iterates through the certain steps, and then reverse, that is forwarding, and then reversing will be done wherein you get the original image. This original image is actually looking like an original, but it's not actually an original image, right? So again you have a real image, add a noise, bring back to the original image. So what we have now? We have an original image as well as we have a fake image which is actually looking like a original image. Okay, these are the different methods how you are going to augment the data set. Now flipping, cropping has gone. Okay, now to augment the data we used to do flipping, cropping, now it has gone now. Now what you are doing is always the diffusion models you are using. You are using variants of GANs. Why? It improves the accuracy, right? It gives you more better performance when compared to the traditional methods. Got it? Okay guys, still here any doubts? Am I clear? So, any doubts or shall I go ahead? Yeah, so I'll just, I think it's not visible, I'll just tell you what is these things. Have you heard about the Hugging Face libraries in the transformers? Yes. Okay, so you have a transformer library, that is the Hugging Face library, which is from the transformers. To access those, you need some kind of a keys, right? Some of them are free available, Grok and all, have you used it? Cohere, Grok keys, right? You can just try it out when you get a time. So, when I'm using this transformer based model training, the data is actually trained on the, as I said, the massive data which is going to be from various different sources. It could be online materials, Wikipedias, right? Any other contents which is available as the online sources. So that is nothing but transformer based model training, but it is basically for the text generations. Okay, it is for the text generations. Similarly, GAN based model training is for the image based training. Okay, you have various pre-trained models. Can you list out some of the libraries which are having a pre-trained models? Transformer, which is for the text generation, which has a pre-trained models, right? Similarly, for GAN also we have various pre-trained models, right? You have VGG and variants of the VGGs are there. You have YOLO models, right? They are all the pre-trained models. What do you mean by pre-trained? They have been already trained using various images of different classes. You are directly using those pre-trained models and you are giving your new training data to test on those data set. Okay, so it is reducing your training time. That's the main agenda. And you get a large data because you are using the pre-trained models. So similarly, as I said about the diffusion model training, adding the random noise to it and then getting the image which looks like a original, very realistic, right? So that is nothing but your diffusion model training. Yeah, when I say GAN, how your data comes from, that's your real data sample, which is any image you take. Let's say I'm giving that rabbit image itself, fine. And then what we have here, we have two things, one is generator and the discriminator. That is the real data for me, wherein I have taken a real picture of the rabbit in the garden and I am giving another image to the generator which is generated by the DALL-E. Got it? Now what your GAN is doing here, it is comparing both of this using the discriminator. What the discriminator does here is, it applies the condition to check whether it is real or a fake. Then to do that we have one more arrow over here, right? The generated fake samples have been fine-tuned. At one point of time your discriminator will fail to say that which is real and which is fake. Okay, so finally what we are getting here is, we are getting the n number of images. Got it? Right? This is how actual the architecture of a GAN looks like. So I think I have told about this, image generation, text generation, all those things. It's a repetition. You can just go to the next slide. Yeah, I have just listed out some of the tools of GenAI like Brad, Claude, DALL-E, right? So like that you have various other tools. Please explore it. Fine. So if you explore, you get to know like where and how in what kind of a projects you can use this kind of a tools. There are various coding tools are there which will give you the code in a very optimized way. You need to check which is that tool which is giving me the code which I actually require it. Fine. So you have to test it on that, explore the tools over there. Now, coming to responsible AI. Okay. As I said, there are two things, responsible AI and responsible generative AI. Can you just give me the difference between these two? Responsible AI, as I said, it's going to be the data or the content that is generated is safe, is ethical, yes, it is privacy preserved, fine, so on. What is responsible generative AI? That is specific to the Gen AI contents. Responsible AI will apply to any kind of AI, whereas responsible Gen AI will apply to the specific Gen AI contents. Okay, so when I generate some text, you should know like who is accountable for this particular text. Is that clear? I get a text, is it really correct what I am getting a text? So there should be some source to say that yes, this is right. So that is what is responsible Gen AI. Yeah, I have listed out here. That is going to be explainable AI, then trustworthy AI, ethical AI, efficient and effective. What is explainable AI now? If I am saying, right, this is a decision, then you have to have a proper okay, so explainable AI is transparent, which means that whatever the data or a content is generated, it is transparent and you are explaining step by step how you have reached to this particular decision. If you run your ML model to say that a person has a diabetes, you say person has a diabetes, they are coming with the accuracy 95%. But how will you make sure or justify that yes, the person has a 95% accuracy? How did you come to this decision? That is explainable AI, which will explain you step by step to say how you have reached to this particular decision. That's a transparent way of getting things explained. Trustworthy, as I said, let's say that I think you must have seen in Insta, Facebook and all, the person has actually not said something, but you will be getting some fake videos, right? Or images which is being actually not by the genuine person. So such things has to be avoided, right? So trustworthy is nothing but anything you do, have you taken a consent of that? If I want to display the image of Aishwarya Rai, then I have to have a consent saying that can I display your image? If you ask the Synthesia model or your DALL-E to generate the Aishwarya Rai image, it will not generate for you. It will give some other images because you don't have a consent of that. Are you getting? So similarly, it should be ethical, it should be efficient, yes, of course. Whatever the data is generated, it should be safe. Okay? There should not be a biased data. Okay? There should not be some kind of a hate words in the text. So how we are going to avoid that kind of a hate words? So that is being taken care in the efficient, effective. I give a prompt multiple times to the same tool. I should get same answer. It should not be like every time I am giving a prompt and every time it is generating different answer for me. Little variation is fine. So it should be reliable. Okay? So, and accurate, balanced, all these are the kind of advantages which the RAI has to take care. I think this is what I have told about. Now, why is that responsible AI required? Generating the truthful content, which means that whatever the data or output is generated is correct. Let's say that you are reading some legal document, right? And you want the output from the legal document to saying that explain me what this means. What is this IPC code means? Or maybe this IPC code is mentioned in this legal document, what that makes me understand. Okay, so in that case, whatever the output is generated by your model should be the content from that particular document, saying that yes, this is being written in this particular legal document. It should not be something it is taking from some other sources and explaining you what that IPC code or what is the actual query is. Are you getting, all of you? Truthful content is nothing but I want the content from this particular source. What that means. Avoiding toxic content. Yes, of course, whenever you generate any output, there should not be any kind of a hate words in that. If you see GenAI, if you have observed, anything you give, it gives the output in a very, yes, fine-tuned way. Are you getting? So output doesn't have any time a kind of a hate words. If you are giving also, it says it is not safe to use such kind of a words. If you have observed, you can try it out, right? Then harmful instructions. Let's say you are asking, can I take this antibiotic? Okay, will it suggest you to take the antibiotic? It will give you some instructions and say, consult your doctor. This antibiotic is mentioned for what? It gives you what is antibiotic, what that antibiotic does. It gives you all that, but it will not prescribe you saying that you take this antibiotic. Okay, and then prevent training data, that is the privacy breaches, obviously. There should not be any data leakage, or you are using any data that should have a proper safe content in it. Similarly, yes, as I said, accountability. When the data is generated, there should be a proper source to say that who is accountable for this kind of a data generated. Okay. Now, when I say responsible AI, it's safe, fair, right? It should be unbiased, it should be ethical. What that means here? Right? When I say, guys, are you getting, all of you? Right? Responsible AI, as I said, ethical, fair, it should be unbiased, it should be privacy preserving, all that. I'll just tell you one thing here. Fair means what here? Are you able to see? Yes? See, illa kanisala ansute, off maadi light. Okay. We have three things here in the fair, that is equality, equity and justice. There are three people standing on the, you can say the box which is of same height. Try to understand, guys, where the responsible AI will come into the picture. All of them are standing in the same height, which means that you are giving same priority to all the students or maybe the people over there. But is there any equality? They are not able to see the match over there, right? So this is not an equality. If though you are saying that, okay, I have given the same boxes, I am having the equality shown here, but there is no justice saying that the particular kid is not able to see. Similarly, now what I will do is, I will increase the box sizes, right? Now what is that? Equity. All of the three are able to see, but for how many people you do this, right? I have a different height, different age, different type of a people. I cannot keep doing this. I should have a proper justice to say that anybody can see. So what I will do now? I have a netted this, right? So anybody can see. This is what is the justice. This is what your responsible AI actually does. Got it? Right? Okay. So where this responsible AI can be used is, it can be used in the healthcare application. Let's say the patient who is going to the doctor should treat the patient seeing his disease or not by seeing his financial conditions. All of them should be given the same priority. Wherein education, yes, it comes even in the education also, the tutorials, the materials, right? When it is applicable over there. Finance, which may be like a banking sector, if you are providing a loan to any person, there should be a equal guidelines should be given for all the kind of customers. There should not be a different guideline for each of the customers seeing their background, right? So in the finance also it is being used. So similarly in sustainability and even in the public safety and the governance. So I think you must have already seen in a real time how this justice is being provided. What are the challenges? When you come out with so much of a content, right? and you are trying to use so much of a data in your real time with respect to a project, with respect to product, or maybe to understand your own things most of the time, right? Let's say that if I give, today I am depressed, ChatGPT will give you the answer saying that what are your hobbies, it will list out what kind of music you like, it lists out, then it tells you, okay, you go for a walk or something like that, right? So there are certain challenges to do all these things. We need a very huge content, right? So what could be there? The challenges here are, there could be a misinformations, there can be a deep fakes, right? So deep fake, misinformation, which is again generated by the AI only. Differentiating and getting the things more, what do you call, the accurate one, genuine one is actually a challenge here. Got it, right? So identifying this is the misinformation, this is not a correct image is a main challenge. So like I have given the politician maybe giving some kind of a speech, but maybe it's not his speech, right? So you have already observed in many of the cases. Then intellectual property, right? That is going to be a copyright infringement. Like whenever you take anything from a particular source, you always index it. Why are you indexing it? There should not be a copyright issue later on, saying that this is my patent or maybe my copyright is being used by somebody. So there should be again a proper consent to say that I am using your data. So that is again a problem here. When it is generating any data or a content, it should see whether this data I can display or no. This is again a very great challenge for your Gen AI, right? So similarly, misuse. Data should not be misused for some wrong purposes. So that's again a challenge here when it is giving a data or maybe the content to you. Where are you going to use? How you are going to use, right? All these things are very much important. So that's again a challenging part of it. Similarly, another one, a very important thing I can say, bias in the data. Now most of you must be running your machine learning models. You take the data set, which is some traditional or historical data. Let's say you are taking some healthcare data. That healthcare data says, with respect to diabetes, patient diabetes. Nowadays you can see in this generation, the children are also getting the diabetes. Now what you are doing is, you are using the data set which is a traditional data set, which has a diabetes data set of a age group of a people from maybe 40 to 80. The same data set you are using for a child or a kid who is having in a 10 years age. Will it give you a correct accuracy? Your cholesterol level will be different, so many other parameters will be different over there, right? But still you use that data to run your model and you also come out with some accuracy, right? So that bias should not be there. You should be very careful. So only whenever you are all in AI/ML department, you should be very careful when you use a data set. Which year data set you are using? Is the data set genuine, right? And what are the attributes in the data set? Can I use this data set which is actually giving me a weightage to my model, or shall I ignore this data set, right? So what are the various other age parameters? If something is there, then you have to be very careful with the age parameters. If there are any test reports of the medical history, you should be careful with the test reports, right? All these things are very important when you are running any machine learning models. Because I see most of the students, they see the data from the UCI repository or from the Kaggle, they directly download. They don't even open the data set. They don't even see what are the attributes in the data set. They just import in the Colab, run the program. That program also they'll get from ChatGPT, right? So analysis of the data is very important. Once you know the data set, what it is, how to use it, then only you'll be able to understand what is your output. Got it? So that's again some challenges. I've just listed out some of the challenges. There are various challenges which actually your GPT is coming across with so many things. So only they are coming with different type of AIs. How to make it more privacy preserved. So some of the principles have been also developed, right, to overcome such kind of issues. What could be the, what do you call, some of them I have listed out, okay. To prevent such kind of a misuse, there should be a data governance, which means that there should be a proper, what do you call, a source for a data collection, data storage, data distribution. Are you getting, right? So you should have a proper storage or the collection process. Should not be randomly taken from somebody and you are dumping it somewhere. Similarly, consent. Whenever you are using any data, there should be a consent from that particular person. Then obviously the misuse will not happen, right? So only when we say you are using any healthcare data, you are using any ISRO related data, or maybe satellite data, we take the data from the proper sources, that's from the hospital itself, right? From having a proper MOUs and all that. Why? Because we are doing some genuine work, right? We want the output to be very genuine. We don't want to misuse the data for some other purpose, right? So similarly, for privacy, you are encrypting your data, right? So that can be done. Encrypt your data before you are using it or before you are giving it to somebody. Then transparency, there should be always a data transparency to say that how the data is generated, what is the output of this, how you have reached to this output. Okay, that explainability should be always there. Accountability should be always there. Then only you can say that you can avoid to certain level the misuse of the data sets. Now, ಸೆಷನ್ ಮುಗಿಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಾಗಿದೆ ಓಕೆ ನಾನು ಇನ್ನೂ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಚೈನ್ ಇದೆ LLM ಇದೆ RAG ಇದೆ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬ್ ಅವ್ರು ಸರ್ ಫ್ರೀ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಹಂಗೇನಿಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲ ಓಕೆ ಫೈನ್ ಅದು ಮುಗಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ಮುಗಿಸಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಓಕೆ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಐ ಶುಡ್ ರನ್ ಟು ಲಿಟಲ್ ಫಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಏನು ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಬೇಡ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ ಹುಡುಗರು ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಒಂದು ಫ್ಲೋನಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಗ್ದೋಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಓಕೆ ಸೊ now another challenge here. When I have LLM, when I have transformer, why do I need LangChain? Why do I need RAG? Transformer was there, which is for trained on the massive amount of text data set. It's also a pre-trained. Then, why I need a LLMs? Large language models. Yes, you already know that, right? Then after LLMs, we have a LangChain also. LangChain base is also a LLM only. See here, you need to just understand this. LLMs are actually a large language models which are very big, which are trained on a very huge amount of data sets, such that when you ask a prompt or when you query LLM, it will give you the answer in a very generic way. It will not be a specific one or a domain specific, I can say. LLM is going to give a output in a very generic way. LangChain, it understands your query and extracts the domain specific knowledge from the right query. Understood? Guys, understood? Guys, please don't get distracted. If you understand, then only I can run through the code and then I can explain you what the code is. Okay, I'll just brief it out. Okay, I think I need to go a little faster, right? So understand this, LLM, it generates the output in a very generic way for a given prompt, not with very specific domain. Whereas LangChain are specific to the domains. If I ask the same question to the LangChain, it gives me the step-by-step answer to say that what is a specific answer for your prompt, right? So let's say that you are going to buy a computer. If you ask LLM, I want to buy this computer, it gives in a very generic way. You can buy this computer is so and so, this is the so and so configuration. But LangChain will tell you, if you are buying this computer is from which particular company? Who is the manufacturer, right? It gives you the complete details of the configuration explaining that why you want to go with this computer. Understood? So it becomes very domain specific. That's the LangChain. But base of all these are LLMs. Without LLM, you cannot run all of this. Now, what are these LLMs? As I said, LLMs, that is the large language models, which are trained on a very large deep learning models. And they are using various pre-trained model. Now, you have individual, VGG, right? YOLO or maybe LSTM, all those as individual pre-trained models, right? But what this LLM is doing is, it is the integration of all the kind of pre-trained models. I ask any data, it should be able to give a prompt for me. So that's what we call it as a very large deep learning models. So again, it uses the transformer based architecture only. Why is LLMs important? Why is LLMs important? To summarize your data, to get the prompt for your query, right? To summarize the content from the documents, PDFs, articles, Wikipedias, right? Videos, all those things, like wherein it is making your life easy by making things easily understandable. Okay? Now, why we say LLMs are big? We say LLMs are very big, right? So how is this parameters trained here? If you see over there, OpenAI, I will show you that key also, OpenAI key. OpenAI key is used by GPT-3 model, which is actually trained on 175 billion parameters. You can just imagine how many parameters it is used, right? So only when you get an output, your outputs are going to be so relevant. Are you getting, all of you guys, right? So GPT-3 is using 175 billion parameters, which is actually, we call it as LLMs are very big. Similarly, Brad, Claude, AlphaCode, right? We have listed so many other tools. All of them are trained on a various billions of the parameters. So if you say Claude, it is trained on 100k tokens in each prompt. Okay, 100k is nothing but 100,000 tokens are being used for each of the word. Are you getting? If I say, if I say, for example, AI is nothing but it is mimicking the human. It extracts the keyword. What is the keyword here? AI, mimicking human. Each of these three words are being trained on these parameters to understand what I am actually trying to tell. Got it? So similarly, we have AI21 Labs, which is going to be trained on 178 billion parameters. Cohere command, which is actually giving you the description. I will show you in the program how the Cohere command is used, which is actually trained on 100 different languages. Okay, Cohere is coming as a form of a key, which has a command as a function in it, which is giving you the description of your content, which is actually using 100 different type of languages. Similarly, LLMs are there. Next, yeah, how they are trained and all, I will show you in the demo itself. Next, what we have? Yeah, this is the difference between LLM and a LangChain. What I have told you, same is being displayed here. LLMs are going to be very generic, LangChain are going to be very domain specific. So how these LangChains are working? Yes, LangChain, it has a chain, right? So the chain is what here? That's one of the main, what you call the heart of the LangChain, wherein the fundamental principle that holds various AI components in the LangChain which provide the context-aware responses. If I give certain prompt, what should be the next sentences or what should be the next paragraph? That chain or a sequence of a word should be there. That sequence of a words we call here as a chain. Okay. Then we have another keyword in the LangChain, which is going to be a link. Okay. Chain and a link are the two main keywords in the LangChain. What do you mean by this link here? The strings of a words or the output that is being generated. Each one will have a proper link between one word to the another word. That sequence is also known as a links here. Now, what is the working architecture of LangChain? If you see the structure itself, you can tell how it works. Can you just see here how it works? I have a data which is in the form of a PDFs. It could be anything. Okay. So the data is there where this data is being divided into the chunks. Okay. So the data is being, in the sense, it reads the PDF, divides that into the form of a smaller chunks. Then these chunks are embedded. So in this embedding, we are performing a text to a numerical representation. Are you getting? So we want a text to be converted to the numerical representation, which we call it as a vector embeddings. So that is being done here, wherein we have a text to be converted into the numerical representations, which we called as a vector embeddings. These embedded data is sent to the vector store. Okay, now what I have here? I'm the user, right? I'll send a query. So I'll send a query saying what is neural network, right? So what is neural network? I'm sending a query over there. That question is also being encoded in the form of a numerical representation. So you have to perform again a vector embeddings over there. Fine. Once you do that, the question is embedded. It searches for the semantic search. My question is what is neural network? I have to find in that chunks what is neural network, where it falls. From those chunks it will see the answer, right? And that cosine similarity will be done here, wherein it checks what is the score of the answer. What I am getting, is it authenticated, is it genuine, is it correct? So we have a semantic search which goes to the vector store, and then the results are being shown here. Okay, the same results will go to the user as well, which is in the form of a text. It's again, if you see the numerical embedding, we'll be able to see what is the answer over there. No, I have to again give it to the LLM to frame a text out of that embeddings. So LLM will give you the output. Got it, guys? Am I clear? Right? So LangChain is nothing but you are reading the PDF, you are converting into the vector embeddings, you are storing those vector embeddings, your query is being generated, which is also in the form of a vector embeddings, does the semantic search from the read PDFs, gives the output. Fine? Simple architecture. Simple thing, wherein you just need to import the LangChain library to do all this. You are not going to sit and code the entire thing. You need to know which library has to be used for what kind of a codings. Yeah, last part of it, RAG. Retrieval Augmented Generation. What do you mean by this? Now what we have seen is, I have a prompt, I have a query, and then I am getting the output. Now let's say, I have an external knowledge, which is nothing but a document. That document, I want to understand what is it. Let's say it could be an article or it could be any legal document. I am not able to understand what it is. What I will do is, I will give it to the RAG model, wherein it will not retrain your data now. When I give a document, it is not going to retrain the data. Whatever the pre-trained models are there, it analyzes that when you give a document, it just reads the document. If you ask a query from that document, it gives you the answer from that document in a very simple way, in a fine-tuned way. So it doesn't mean that whatever I am giving a data is been again retrained. No. Got it? This is the beauty of the RAG. Very wonderful tool. Okay. So anything you want to understand from the external knowledge base, just give a document, ask a query from the document, it will give you what is the answer from that document only. Understood? That is nothing but a RAG. I think this, as I said, we have LLMs, we have LangChains. What is the disadvantage of LLMs here is, same like GenAI, it also creates the hallucination. As I said, it generates very generic answer, right? Generic answer in the sense, yes, obviously some things will be added extra over there. So sometimes the data will be very outdated. The new technology has come, new answer is being built, but still it is generating you some old answers. Then low efficiency, lack of in-depth knowledge, right? So all of these things are overcome in the LangChains. Okay, so being a very, even in the RAG, very domain specific, in-depth knowledge, relevant answer, accountability of the answer, all of these things are covered in the RAG. Got it, guys? Understood? At least a basic difference you understood what these techniques means here, right? Okay, so this is how the architecture of a RAG looks like. It's very beautifully done. If you see here, if you observe, guys, this side, just have a look on this. What we have here, right? If you observe, there is a user, okay? The user is querying. That's a query. That query is being, it is sent to the, what do you call the, whatever the query you give, it has to be again done in the embedding format. It has to be again represented in the form of a numerical representations, right? So that is being done over there. Then next, there is a document which you can see. The query, the link goes to the indexing, where the document is also connected to the indexing. It reads the documents, understands your query, generates the answer from that documents. Are you getting all of you? Right? So the process goes on where again the embeddings will be done. I have a various chunks here, reads the chunks, generates the output for a given question. I have an answer in some 3 to 4 answers from the given chunks. The relevant answer will be taken by the RAG. Understood? With RAG, what could be the answer? Without RAG, what could be the answer? With RAG, if you say, it suggests very clearly relevant answer. Without RAG, if you see, I am unable to provide the contents or the comments from the given document. So where is it? I am giving a document, I am making the model understand the document, generate the output for me from that document which I can understand it. In between all this, remember there is a very important thing which is embeddings. So you need to have a knowledge on the vector embeddings. Yeah, again same applications, it can be used in various applications. Challenges we have already seen, the same kind of challenges are there.